When Sergeant Sarah Whitaker stepped off the bus, the wind in her hometown of Bayfield, North Carolina, smelled of salt and rain. After 12 years in the Army, with tours in Iraq and Afghanistan under her belt, she was finally home. At least, that's what everyone kept telling her. But home didn't feel like home anymore. The town was a time capsule. Same brick buildings, same fishing boats, same familiar faces waving as if she'd only been gone a day. But Sarah wasn't the same. She couldn't explain the chasm that had opened inside her, the invisible wounds that ached more than any old injury. Her duffel bag felt heavy on her shoulder, but not as heavy as the discharge papers tucked in her pocket. Her knees protested from years of service, and her right hand, a souvenir from an IED explosion, carried a slight, constant tremor. At the bus stop, her mother's arms were a warm embrace, her tears a testament to years of worry. "Baby, you're really home," she sobbed. Sarah managed a smile, a mask she'd perfected. How could she explain that sleep was a stranger she had unknown for more than 3 hours a night in years? That crowds felt like closing walls, and the crackle of fireworks was a gunshot in the dark. Her mother's love was a lifeline, but it couldn't reach the part of her that was still stranded in a war zone. That first night, she stood by her childhood bedroom window, listening to the profound quiet of the house, to quiet that should have been comforting, but to her, silence was just a prelude to danger. In the stillness of Bayfield, the desert wind still howled in her mind. In Iraq, Sarah had commanded a convoy unit tasked with moving vital supplies through treacherous territory. She was responsible for 8 people, 8 lives. She could still see all their faces, but one stood out most clearly: Corporal Diaz. He was the youngest, just 19, always cracking jokes and humming old country tunes. He was the light in the darkness. The explosion that extinguished that light happened on a dusty road north of Baghdad. Sarah was driving the lead truck. She saw the blinding flash, felt the world tear apart, and then nothing. She woke up in a field hospital days later, the memory of Diaz's laughter forever replaced by the deafening echo of that blast. Officially, her commander had cleared her of any fault. But guilt doesn't follow orders. It came home with her, a permanent scar stitched into the fabric of her soul. The weeks back home bled into one another. Sarah tried to be normal. She took a job at the local grocery store, hoping routine would be a bomb. But the constant noise, the bustling aisles, the overwhelming sensory input was too much. It felt like an ambush. She quit after just 2 days, retreating back into herself. One morning, seeking solace in the salty air, she found herself walking by the harbor. A group of local teenagers were there, painting over graffiti on the old familiar bridge, the same one she'd raced across on her bike as a kid. A makeshift sign read, "Bayfield Youth Project, Restoring Our Town." Something about the scene made her stop. The bridge, a landmark of her youth, was now decaying, rust creeping up its steel sides like a disease. An older man in a work jacket, overseeing the project, noticed her watching. "You looking to help?" he asked with a friendly smile. Sarah hesitated, the words catching in her throat. "I don't know if I'm much use anymore," she admitted, the truth of it hitting her hard. He just grinned. "You've got 2 hands, don't you? That's all we need." So she came back the next day. And the day after that, with the kids, she wasn't Sergeant Whitaker, the decorated soldier. She was just Sarah. They didn't ask about the war. They asked about her tattoos. They shared stories. They joked. They painted. And slowly, cautiously, she began to laugh with them. A real laugh, not the hollow echo she'd grown used to. One of the teens, impressed by her know-how, asked if she could teach them how to properly fix the corroded metal beams. Sarah found a flicker of her old self ignite. She spent hours showing them how to weld, how to measure, how to reinforce the structure until it was strong again. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt useful. Every resonant clang of a hammer against steel, every smooth brushstroke of fresh paint felt like a deliberate act of healing, of putting herself back together, piece by piece. But healing is never a straight line. It's a jagged path with hidden pitfalls. One afternoon, as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and fire, a car backfired on the street below the bridge. The sharp, percussive crack hit her like a physical blow. The world dissolved. She was no longer in Bayfield. She was back on that sun-scorched road outside Baghdad. The acrid smell of smoke, the scorching heat, Diaz's voice screaming her name. She dropped her tools, the metal clattering on the pavement as she stumbled away, gasping for air she couldn't find. The teenagers froze, their laughter silenced, their faces etched with confusion and concern. Then a quiet voice cut through the fog of her panic. "Hey," said a girl named Maya, who couldn't have been more than 16. "You're okay. You're here with us. It's just a car. You're safe." Sarah latched onto her voice, a lifeline in the swirling chaos of her memory. Slowly, the harbor, the bridge, and the worried faces of the kids swam back into focus. Tears she hadn't let herself cry for years finally broke free, streaming down her face, and for the first time she didn't try to stop them. That night, sleep was impossible. The flashback had opened a door she'd kept bolted shut. So she sat at her desk, took out a pen and paper, and finally wrote the letter she'd been avoiding for years. A letter to Corporal Diaz's parents. She wrote, "I want you to know he was brave. He made us all laugh when things felt unbearable. I wish I could have done more, but I carry him with me every single day. Because of him, I'm still trying to build something that lasts. I hope that brings you some peace." She mailed it the next morning, a weight lifting from her shoulders with the simple act of letting it go. A week later, a reply arrived. It was short, but it held a world of grace. "Thank you for remembering him," it read. "He would have been so glad you're still building bridges." By the time summer reached its peak, the bridge was finished. It gleamed, a brilliant, hopeful blue against the sparkling water, connecting the two sides of the harbor once more. At the opening ceremony, the mayor gave a speech about community and renewal. Then he turned to Sarah and presented her with a small, unassuming plaque. It read, "Dedicated to Sergeant Sarah Whitaker, who taught us that healing means rebuilding one piece at a time." Standing there, surrounded by the teenagers, her mother beaming in the crowd, Sarah was speechless. She just smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. Later that night, she walked to the middle of the bridge alone. The moon cast a silver path on the calm, endless water. She took a deep, steadying breath. For the first time in 12 years, the silence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like peace. It felt like home. A year passed, in a small, renovated workshop near the harbor. A new sign went up, "The Bridge Project." It was Sarah's creation, offering free classes for veterans and local teens carpentry, metalwork, art, and storytelling. It was a place where people who felt broken could come and build something new with their own two hands, finding community and purpose in the process. Every morning, before she unlocked the door, Sarah would stand for a moment and look out at the blue bridge spanning the harbor. And every morning, she would whisper the same words, a promise and a prayer. "We made it, Diaz. We made it home." Thank you for watching this story of resilience and community. If you were moved by Sarah's journey, please give this video a like and consider subscribing for more stories that inspire. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.